program are those of the speakers and the host and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Hello, everybody. Welcome inside a Monday episode of Running Point on ysnlive.com. Brought to you, as always, by our good friends over at Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. They go the extra mile for you. We try to do the same, not just on this show, but on YSN as well. And we thank Greenwood for their constant sponsorship and belief in this show and in YSN Live as well. So we thank them, and they are a wonderful sponsor of the show, as they always are. Like we do on every Monday, it's time to recap the weekend. It was a big one of basketball on Friday and Saturday. We had a lot of scores come in and a lot of conference shakeups come in as well. Let's go all the way back to Friday and get you covered on the weekend that was. Rewind your brains with us a little bit because, man, there was a lot of basketball. So let's take a deep breath, go back to Friday, and see what went down on Friday. We'll start with the first score that came in. Waterloo gets the win over Sebring on Friday in the MVAC Scarlet Tier. Closer than you might have thought with the way these two teams were trending. But, man, Sebring, especially in the last 2 weeks, has put together some pretty good basketball. I think they are on the rise. I love what Coach Knepp is doing down there. He's a great dude. Couldn't respect him more. They lose 49-40, but Sebring, these scores starting to get closer. They're getting some wins on the boys' side. They're building. They're definitely building, and it's kind of under the radar. You got to watch out for the Trojans maybe in the next couple of years. Lee Knepp is going to be there for a while. He's going to bring some sustainability to the program. I think they're in good hands. And they competed well with a Waterloo team that we see time and time again hard to beat, especially down the stretch of games. We'll go to a little bit more of an offensive game as Jackson Milton had to battle neck and neck with the McDonald team that's looking to have a good second half of the season and get themselves right before tournament play. 78-70. Jackson Milton gets the win in one of the most offensive games that we've seen so far with combined point totals this season. You know, that's a combined 148 points by both teams. So you don't see a lot of those games this year so far where both teams are really clicking on offense and it's a high scoring affair. But that one close and high scoring, 78-70. Jackson Milton gets the win. Another close one in Camel as they are able to hold off Liberty 59-55, the final score there for the Red Devils win in the MVAC Gray Tier. Speaking of the MVAC Gray Tier, Brookfield gets to win over Crestview 77-58. That's another good offensive performance out of Brookfield. They've had a handful of games that are over 70. They've even had a couple of games that go over 80. So that offense really putting together a good season. Another good day for them over Crestview 77-58. And this game was close at halftime. And Brookfield really put their pedal to the metal in the second half to pull away. We saw Wellsville get the win in the EOAC on Friday, 54-44. But you can tell, and this is going to come up when we talk about Saturday scores, teams were starting to get a little bit closer to Wellsville down the stretch. This is a 10-point win for them on Friday, and a little bit of a tease of what happened on Saturday. As I said, teams are getting a little bit closer to the top-ranked Tigers in the EOAC. Struthers got the win in the 70-57 over a Hubbard team that is playing a lot better down the stretch and has beaten a couple of teams. They beat Jefferson 2 weeks ago. So that's a Hubbard team you have to watch out for. But Struthers took care of business 70-57 on Friday. We saw Lowville get the win on Friday in a really defensive game. Hard to hold Lowville to just 46 points, but Springfield defense was definitely working hard. But unfortunately for the Tigers, Lowville brought their defense to the party as well. And that's something that's underrated about this team because they're scoring 80 points, a lot. They have a lot of 80-point performances. People forget that Lowville plays really, really good defense, really pressure defense in your face. They're big, they're hard to drive on. Lowville plays really good defense, and they proved that on Friday, 46-22. They get the win um, over Springfield. This was a game that got a lot of talk because Edgewood did, a very brave thing, and they welcomed in Richmond Heights into Edgewood at home. So they were able to host Richmond Heights, which, if you don't know, I know they're outside the coverage map. They don't really, get talked about on Ysn a lot, but Richmond Heights is one of the best basketball teams in the state of Ohio across all divisions. All the Division 4 teams are going to watch out for them. They're a state champion for a reason. They're one of the favorites to win state this year again in Division 4. They're very good at what they do, and they kind of proved it. 124 points against Edgewood on Friday. The final score there, 124-39. And this was a running clock for the whole second half. So you think about that. A running clock, and they're still able to drop 124. Pretty impressive from Richmond Heights. And like I said, they're a state champion favorite for a reason in Division 4. They kind of flexed their muscles. That was a 9-win Division 2 team that they went up and beat. So they went up 2 divisions, 9 wins for Edgewood, a solid basketball team, but no match for Richmond Heights, of course. Poland gets the win over Niles, 37-34. Another close one in the 88. Not a shocker. We talked about it last week. These 88 boys games, they seem like a lot of them are coming down to the wire. A lot of them are so close. There's a lot of parity in the league this year. Aren't a lot of teams that are a lot better than the other ones. And it proves it again. Poland, a nice win over Niles, and that's a team that's above them in the standings right now. So getting a win, up the ladder in the 88 by 3. Poland putting together a nice one, and it was a defensive battle as well. 37-34 final score there. We go from a close game to one that wasn't close. Lisbon's offense went off 71-31. Trevor Sifke is having a very under the radar, a very good year. Another great performance out of him. And when he's running, this Lisbon offense is purring like an engine as they go 71-31 over Latonia. A close one in the 88. I mean, the story's the same. South Range wins over Jefferson 63-62. Really tough one for the Falcons because South Range beats Girard on Tuesday. That means Jefferson is tied for first place. They had the opportunity right in front of them to keep pace with Girard, and then they'd have a matchup with Girard later on in the season, which would have, if they would have kept pace, would have been, first place matchup. But they go into a really hot South Range team that hasn't lost a league game in a while. They've all been very close games as well. So it was a tough opponent, of course, for Jefferson. A back and forth game. I was there. I can talk about it a little bit. Back and forth game. But Jefferson could never take that 2-possession lead when they were getting momentum. Every time they take a little lead, South Range would come back and tie it. It was actually tied late, and then a big call down the stretch with about 40 seconds left, around there. I don't remember exactly the timestamp, but about 40 seconds left in the game. I think it was Turvey went in for a drive to the hoop. He got bumped out of bounds, a little chest bump, maybe a little push. He couldn't really, I wouldn't say it was a dramatic shove, but maybe a little bit of arm extension is what drew this call. It was an intentional foul, which of course gave Turvey the 2 free throws and then gave the Raiders the basketball. It was a big swing in that game. Turvey hit both. They got the ball back. They went up by 4. Struthers cut it to 1. And then South Range went to the free throw line. They missed the free throw, which was the front end of the 1-on-1, but then Aiden Leone got the rebound, and really once he got the offensive rebound with 5 seconds left, it ate the clock up. He kind of threw it up in the air, high in the air. It bounced out of the rim. It didn't go in, but it took up enough clock that Jefferson had no chance to really pull off any kind of heroic. So that's how that game went down the stretch. It was a thriller like South Range games have been for it feels like the last 2 weeks they've pulled out 1 2-point victories in the league. Didn't against Girard with the game winner with Leon's layup, and now they do it here against Jefferson with the game-winning, offensive rebound. I guess the game-winning shot was at the free throw line earlier in that fourth quarter, but the game-winning play once again made by Aiden Leon. So that's 2 games in a row that he was able to have that game-winning play. And they were both down in the paint. He's getting really, really hard to handle in the paint. And we said it, football players, we're going to take some time to hit their stride in basketball season for South Range after that long state run in football. And here we are in the waning days of January, and the football players for South Range are definitely hitting their stride. Landon Moore, he had 16 points. He's starting to really score. You see Leon starting to make game-winning plays. And then Luke Rowan has found a heck of a stroke from beyond the arc. We'll talk about the Cheney game a little bit later when we get into Saturday. They lost to Cheney, but he hit 7 threes against the Cowboys. So he hit 17 threes in 3 games this week from beyond the arc. So he's starting to find his rhythm from the perimeter, which makes South Range even more dangerous because going into the last 2 weeks, if you were doing a scouting report on South Range before he hit this hot streak, you would be really worried about them inside and not greatly worried about them outside. They have a couple of players, once again, this is 2 weeks ago. They have a couple of players that can hit them every now and then if you leave them wide open, but they're not a team that's going to go create a shot. They're not going to go looking for a 3. They much rather do their work inside with Landon Moore, Aiden Leon, Dylan Turvey. All those players much better to the dribble drive than they are shooting the 3. But then here we are with Lewis starting to find a little bit of rhythm from behind the arc. Luke Rowan starting to find a little bit of rhythm from behind the arc. So you cannot scout them as just an inside presence team anymore. Still have to worry about those guys that can drive, and you still have to worry about Aiden Leon posting you up. But you can't leave shooters around the perimeter anymore against the Raiders. They're starting to really get some confidence in their 3-point shooting ability, which has given them a boost in the 88. Now all of a sudden, they are tied with Jefferson in second place, just 1 game back at Girard. They have to play Jefferson again. The Raiders are done with Girard, but Girard has to play Jefferson again too. So the 88 still very much up for grabs. And of course, South Range is going to be the biggest Jefferson fan in the world when those 2 teams match up again. And we could very well see a 3-way tie in the 88. It could happen. It would be weird. It would be kind of funky. There's no tie break rules. I've asked, a couple of coaches. They said no, they would just kind of give a championship plaque to all 3 of the teams. So that's definitely in the cards. It's also in the cards that Girard takes care of business and wins the 88. You never know what'll go down, but South Range has made this league very interesting down the stretch by knocking off Girard on Tuesday and then knocking off Jefferson on Friday. Next score up for you is Girard, who we just talked about. They bounced back from their loss to South Range, took care of Lakeview 52-28, the final score there. Wyndham got the win over Fairport Harding 58-47. We saw Southern get the win 77-52, one of the biggest offensive outputs we've seen from Southern this year, as they beat East Palestine by 77-52 final score. Columbiana got into a really big battle with Valley Christian, two of the teams that are trying to get into that top ring of the EOAC. 56-51 though, Columbiana pulls out the win. We saw Hobart on the boys' side get the win on Friday, 55-48 against Cleveland Central Catholic. We saw Garfield get the win over Champion, 55-35, the final score there. Howland boys got the win over Boardman, 65-56. Canfield boys got the win over Fitch, 50-42. A tough week for Fitch, as they lose to Canfield in a close one. Badger gets the big win over St. John. It was kind of a one where they wanted one where they could breathe a little bit down the stretch. I felt like Badger got into a couple of in a row games where they were sweating down the stretch. This one, able to breathe a little bit more easier 65-43 at the final score there on Friday with the Badger boys. West Branch really battled the top team in the EBC Alliance, but they fell 56-46 to the Aviators on Friday. Warren Harding beat Youngstown East 54-44 in a non-conference battle. Carrollton was able to beat Salem at home 57-40. Carrollton was at home, Salem was on the road. That's where my wording was kind of messed up on that. But Carrollton at home beat Salem 57-40. We saw a close one in Western Reserve. Actually, it was in Middle Ridge, but it was against Western Reserve. Middle Ridge gets their first win of the season. Congratulations to the Rams. They put in a lot of work, just like everybody. They go to practice, just like everybody. They have athletes. They just haven't been able to get that win. A couple of close losses this year where they try to get them, but they do get through this Friday, 54-52. They beat Western Reserve. Then we saw, Ursuline get the win on Friday as well against Massillon, Washington. A big score, 67-46. This is a good Massillon, Washington team, but Ursuline took care of business at home on Friday. So now we go into Saturday. A big shakeup on the girls' side as Brookfield was trying to be one of those teams vying for an MVAC, and they were hoping that they could be there at the end, but they lose to Liberty 53-49 on Saturday. That's a big blow for Brookfield in the MVAC grade tier. The Potters get a big win on the girls' floor, 56-21 over Lisbon on Saturday. We saw West Branch. How about this comeback? Down by 15 at halftime, down by as much as 20 in the second half, but they still able to come back and beat Howland 53-52. What a big momentum boost for the West Branch Warriors, who will play Salem on Wednesday. So that should be a really fun matchup. Obviously, they're much more healthy than they were the last time they played Salem. They feel like with Sophia Gregory on the floor, they can really compete. We'll see what happens. Salem obviously in the tie for first place with Marlington. They can't afford to slip up. They're going to be really motivated. They're a really good basketball team. I think this will be a little bit more of what you expect out of West Branch and Salem rivalry on Wednesday than it was the first time around when Salem was fresh off of losing Sophia Gregory. They hadn't really figured out what was working without her on the floor yet. And I feel like one of the big keys that no one talks about with West Branch is, yes, they have Sophia Gregory back. That's true. But if you looked at their last 2 or 3 games before she came back, they were starting to put things together and figure out some confidence and how they looked and maybe an identity without her on the floor, which I think is big because now she's on the floor, but these players that are around her also have confidence that they don't have to necessarily sit and watch Sophia Gregory do work. They can do their own things. They can score. McKaylin Fitz can score from the outside. We see Hannah Egley have a big game against Howland. She's getting a lot of confidence. And I feel like that confidence would have come regardless eventually with the way Coach DeShields runs a program and the way he's been able to develop players. But, man, they got thrown into the Sharks when Sophia Gregory had to be down for about, what was it, a month or so with that ankle injury. So when she was off the floor, those players, those Hannah Egleys, those Chloe Dennisons, McKaylin Fitz, they all kind of got a really big reality check. Like, we have to get confident in ourselves right now before we lose control this season. And there was maybe a 5-game stretch where they definitely did hit their lumps. But then you look at those last 2 or 3 games before Sophia Gregory came back on the floor. They really started to put it together. And I feel like that plus getting Sophia Gregory back has made this a formidable West Branch team down the stretch. And it's going to be a heck of a game on Wednesday in Beloit between the Warriors and the Quakers as that rivalry is renewed for another edition. On Saturday, we saw Marlington pull off a comeback. It was kind of a comeback Saturday. We saw a couple of comebacks happen. One big one for the Ysn family, one big one for the non-Ysn family team. As Marlington comes back on Louisville, they were down by 7 at halftime. They win by 6. The final score 62-56 in that one. Taylor McCauley had a really good game for the Leopards, though. One of the best performances of the season for her. So congratulations to her. Unfortunately, it's in a losing effort, but that should be good for her moving forward as the Leopards need all the weapons they can get to compete in that Division I tournament. On Saturday, Crestview was able to beat Lowville in a cross cross MVAC matchups, 43-35, but they got a battle. I think that's a lot more close than people expect out of these two teams. I mean, Lowville came in really, really motivated to go. They felt like they could have beaten Western Reserve a little bit earlier in the week, but their point guard was sick, unable to go. They get her back in the lineup. They get a little bit more confidence. They really pushed Crestview hard on Saturday, and they come up a little bit short. But going into that Division 4 tournament, remember Lowville last year went into Badger, upset the Braves. They are not scared of anybody. I think they prove it again against Crestview, 43-35. Crestview gets the win, but the Rockets get a little bit of momentum boost in a non-conference matchup. Badger goes to Niles, and they use a lot of offense to win this one. Usually a very defensive game with Badger. Their defense is able to hold people down under 40, but this time Niles came to play a little bit. They scored 47, but Badger said, we can take your offense and we can give it to you. 62-47, the final score there as Badger gets the win over the Dragons. Salem, this is a game I was at, so once again, I am able to talk about it a little bit more. And I was really impressed with Salem on Saturday. They went into Ursuline, which is a tough place to play, Grid City, USA. And I said this in my article, if you were able to read it on ysnlive.com, to say that they weren't affected by Ursuline's size would be lying. They definitely got some shots blocked in the side. They definitely gave up some offensive rebounds and putbacks to Elena Smith and Trinity Lamb, and they definitely gave up some easy looks inside. It was definitely a factor. The size difference was a factor. But what I was so impressed with Salem is they didn't let it become the deciding factor. They didn't let it say, okay, they didn't let it fester. They didn't let it get into their head. They kept driving on them. They kept pushing. Salem was, and that's why I made the headline for that story, "Bother Not Beaten," because the Ursuline size bothered them. And Coach Hamilton said it after the game in her post game, almost a press conference, like we were in a media room. But in her post game interview, Coach Hamilton Phillips said it like, their size was one of the biggest teams we've seen all year as far as their size and their physicality with Elena Smith and Trinity Lamb inside for Ursuline, but they fought through it. And that's what Salem's going to have to do is they get deeper into the tournament. They're going to see more and more teams with more and more size and more physicality to come with that size. And they got to be able to, okay, it's going to bother us. It's going to affect our game plan. It's going to, it's going to take some stuff away, but it's not going to be the deciding factor. So it's going to be a factor, not going to be the deciding factor. That's what it was on Saturday. They did enough to score on offense. They shot from outside a little bit. Abby Davidson had her typical game. I think she had 18 points, if I remember correctly. Hit a couple of threes, loosened up that defense a little bit. Their defense, Salem's defense, still forced a lot of turnovers on guards before they could get it inside. A lot of leak out buckets right when you thought Ursuline was getting a little bit of momentum. Here's a steal and a fast break layup. Riley Hutton was really good at that in this game, getting the steal and then using her speed to finish in transition. She would beat Lily Scott down the court, which is hard to do because if you've seen Lily Scott play basketball, she is fast and she is athletic. So beating her down the floor in transition, hard to do, but Riley Hutton was able to do it after steals and finish down low and finish in transition. So Salem was able to do that. They were able to do enough to win. And then another thing that was impressive, and I talked about it as well with Coach Hamilton Phillips after the game, they didn't fall into that lull that some teams can fall into the trap of. Sorry there, I kind of lost my balance. But they were able to fall into the trap of having a little bit of lull after a big win. Obviously, Salem with the big win over Marlington on Wednesday. And sometimes teams can kind of overhype that win and then kind of fall asleep in the next game. And Coach Hamilton Phillips brought up the great point. It happened to them last year. And because it happened to them last year, you kind of felt like it was not going to happen to them again. It was in the back of their mind all week leading up to the Ursuline game. Like last year, we beat West Branch. It was a big win for us. And then we went and we lost to Mooney on the road. So, which is a team they felt like they should have beat. So, because that happened, they were able to draw on it. They were able to look back on that experience, and they were saying this is not going to happen to us this year. If we lose to Ursuline, it better be because they are definitely the better basketball team on that floor that day. And that's what it would have had to been. Ursuline would have just had to have made a lot of good shots and made some tough finishes and been the better basketball team. They were not going to win that game because Salem gave it away. They were not going to win that game because Salem lulled. That was just not going to happen. And that was impressive too, because like I said, we forget because they're so good. These basketball teams are so good in the area. We forget they're still high school age kids, and it's easy to kind of fall into that mental lull or have that mental adversity affect you. But Salem didn't. They didn't succumb to it. They got the win over Ursuline. Final score there, 44-32. The Quakers get the win over the Irish on Saturday. Edgewood got the win in the CVC on Saturday over Lakeside, 70-16. The final score for that. A big day for McKenna Venzel as she led the Warriors with 20 points, and having her get a little bit confident going into the tournament, where Edgewood is the 6th seed in the Division II tournament. That could be big because so far this season, most games it's been Casey Kanicki and Katie McAllister, those two. But now you have McKenna Venzel who's scoring 20. If she starts to go off, then you have 3 scores to worry about in Edgewood, which means there's either going to be a little bit more space for Kanicki, or you're going to just have to live with McKenna Venzel getting one-on-one opportunities. So that's going to be interesting. Really interesting. Casey Kanicki, by the way, I don't think I ever said on the show. I apologize last week. We kind of got wrapped up in other conversations, but she is the Edgewood program's leading scorer now. She did that last Saturday against Perry, and she is on pace. If she ends the season well, she could become the all-time leading scorer in Edgewood basketball, guys or girls. We saw Springfield get the win over Rootstown. This is a big win for the Tigers because Rootstown is a top 50 team. They're up in Division 3. They're ranked 6th in the region, up in Division 3 in that Cuyahoga Falls region. And Springfield was able to beat them 37-32. It's a tough game, but J.C. Mullen scored 22 points. And here's another congratulations. We talk about Casey Kanicki on pace for being the Edgewood basketball all-time leading scorer. Well, J.C. Mullen, forget about being on pace. She is there. She has become the all-time leading scorer in Springfield basketball, boys or girls. 1,487 points and counting for J.C. Mullen. Congratulations. What a superstar and what a great season. Last year, she got 1,000 in her junior season, and this year she adds to it by becoming, like I said, the Springfield all-time leading point scorer, boys or girls, 1,487 and counting for J.C. Mullen. You can find a player profile for J.C. Mullen if you want to hear from her on ysnlive.com and also our YouTube page as well. Another score for you on Saturday is Heartland Christian got the win over Latonia, 44-36, the final score there. And this is the big boys game that we got to get to. That remember I teased it when I talked about Wellsville. Southern knocks off Wellsville, 61-54, and a big win for the Indians against the then top team in the EOAC Tigers. And you look at it, and it was Justin Riggs. I saw it wrong. Jason Riggs for Southern, so I apologize for that. But Jason Riggs for Southern that scored 24 points for the Indians to lead them to a 61-54 win over the Tigers. Big win for Southern, and it shakes up the EOAC, and it makes it an EOAC logjam right now at the top with just 2 weeks to play in the regular season for the boys. Middle Ridge, what am I doing? Newton Falls gets the win over Liberty, 61-60. Slow down, Anthony. 61-27. Newton Falls gets the win over Liberty on Saturday. They are still the top team in the MVAC grade tier. And then Cheney beats South Range. We already kind of talked about it. Luke Rowan had 21 points, 7 threes. Not enough to beat Cheney. Matt Jones had 17 for them. 61-52. Cheney beat South Range on Saturday. We saw the Canfield girls get the win on senior night, 40-32 over Boardman. Louisville got 100 points, so we had 200-point games on YSN over the weekend. 106-85, they beat Alliance. On the boys' side, obviously, Warren JFK gets the win over Lakeview, 71-33. We saw Warren Harding beat Mooney, 41-38 on Saturday. Ravenna gets the 3-point win over West Branch. They had to go on the road. That's a tough place to go to Ravenna. They win 50-47. And those are your final scores for the weekend and your final recap. So we're going to take a break after we recapped all that. Ty Bartel is going to be joining us in the second half of the show. We have tournament seedings that came out on Saturday, and we have tournament brackets out, and we are going to go over all of that for the girls' side when we come back on Running Point. Brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
21 News delivers the news as it happens, using the latest technology from where it happens.
Live here outside the Mahoney County.
On air, online,
Wednesday afternoon weather update.
Very dangerous.
and on the 21 News social media platforms.
I'm on the road right now.
21 News, the Valley's only locally owned source for trusted news since 1953.
As fine as the eye can see, the finest hardwoods from the finest trees. Made for your home and within your means, Baird Brothers will help fulfill your dreams. Let life and light come shining through in quiet morns. And heavy traffic, too. Find your easy-to-afford fine hardwood floors and doors and more at BairdBrothers.com.
Every customer has a story, and at Greenwood Chevrolet, we are committed to making sure it ends with you in the right vehicle. I get to be part of somebody's adventure, whether it's buying a car for the first time, helping them get approved, or finding the perfect car for their budget. I'm proud that people trust me with their finances. They trust me to take care of them, and they trust me with their story. I'm Tracy, and I'm ready to go the extra mile for you, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Locally owned and operated, Sheely's relaxed shopping experience means browsing and lounging is always encouraged.
Find Flex Deal and more at Sheely's Furniture and Appliance, because the best things in life happen at home.
How lucky are we to have not one, but two 18-hole Donald Ross Championship golf courses right here in our backyards. Mill Creek Golf Course was selected by Golf Week as one of America's 30 best municipal courses, continuing to challenge golfers of all levels and featuring golf instruction by PGA professionals, a state-of-the-art practice range, a PGA of America recognized pro shop, kids programs, and a relaxing grill room for a memorable golf experience. For more information or to schedule a tee time, visit millcreekmetroparks.org.
Fall is in the air. The kids are back to school, crowds are cheering for the home team, and Myers Family Insurance is prepped for another crazy Medicare season. Every year there's changes, some big, some small, so it's important to have a conversation to make sure your plan is going to meet your expectations for the coming year. Give our team a call today to schedule your annual review.
For all your Medicare needs, call Myers Family Insurance. Or visit us on the web. Check us out online at MyersFamilyINS.com.
Going from mindful to mindful sometimes requires a helping, healing hand. Insight Clinical Counseling and Wellness offers a continuum of mental health and wellness care. At Insight, we're changing the way you receive counseling and wellness services with experienced licensed clinicians and expertly trained wellness staff. With 4 locations in Mahoning and Columbiana County, along with telehealth services, Insight offers clients quick access to care when they need it. Transform your mental health and wellness at Insight Clinical Counseling and Wellness.
Welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com. Ty Bartel has not arrived yet, but hey, we'll have to start with Alan when we go over these seedings and brackets real quick. We're going to glaze over them. There's plenty of time to preview the tournament and go over the matchups and everything. As tournament time approaches for girls basketball, it starts in a little bit. Doesn't start yet, obviously. Still some regular season stuff to figure out, but we will start in D4. and work our way up. Springfield gets the 1 seed in Division 4. Badger gets the 2. Excuse me. Badger gets the 2. Western Reserve gets the 3. Cornerstone Christian gets the 4 seed. Southern Local gets the 5. Chalker gets the 6. Matthews 7. Middle Ridge gets the 8 seed. They come in with an 8-8 record at the time of voting. East Palestine gets the 9. Newton Falls with the 10. Fairport Harding with 11. Lowville 12. Ty, you're popping in. I'm just going over the seedings for Division 4, bud. Lowville with 12, McDonald 13, JFK with 14, Bristol 15, Wellsville 16, Wyndham 17, Andrews Osborne Academy with 18, St. John and 19, Lisbon with 20, Valley Christian with 21, Maplewood 22, Latonia 23, Heartland is 24, Sebring is 25, and then Lordstown is 26. That is the Division 4 Northeast bracket. Northeast District, the way the seedings go. Real quick before we talk about it, I do want to point out, Waterloo fans, you probably didn't hear your name. You're in a different district this year. Division 4 got a little bit weird with the realignment and everyone kind of moving divisions. Waterloo is in the Norwayne district, and it's just one district, so there's no super district for this. These are 13 teams. They'll all be in the same bracket. 1 Richmond Heights, 2 Waterloo, 3 Dalton, 4 is Canton Central Catholic, then Mogador, then St. Thomas Aquinas, then East Canton, Rittman, Central Christian, Open Door Christian, Oberlin, and Lake Ridge Academy.
It's an interesting matchup too, because Waterloo got Canton Central Catholic, the 4th seed, in round 1 of their tournament. So it's going to be an interesting matchup, and I mean. But I will say, if there's a team that's up for the task, Waterloo, I mean, they scheduled St. V's in the regular season. They're a team that, I mean, they put themselves up to the task against non-conference opponents, too. So if any team's ready for it, you think the Lady Vikes are. And then on the other side, too, and there's a lot of interesting matchups in D4. St. John at Warren JFK, that's going to be an all-YSN matchup now, as we got the Fighting Heralds for the first basketball season on the network as well. And, I mean, you talked about, I think, Latonia Southern. Bristol and East Palestine will be an interesting one as well. That's a non-YSN team against YSN. Valley Christian and Badger will be interesting as well with Badger. And I mean, boy, and Badger, if you want to talk about a team that is playing on fire and out of their mind on the girls' side of things.
Well, they're coming in motivated, right? Because I talked about it when I brought up their score from Saturday. They lost in last year's tournament to Lowville right off the jump. They want to redeem themselves. They know they can make a deep run. They know they're talented enough. So they're going to come into this tournament very motivated to kind of get some wins and try to make as deep of a run as possible.
And we see, I think Maplewood takes on Western Reserve in the first round. Lowville and Fairport Harbor Harding's going to match up, and then Wyndham and Matthews, I believe, as well. McDonald and Newton Falls. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Newton Falls is now going to McDonald, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, because Newton Falls can't play home games yet. And rather than go to Lordstown and play a home tournament game at Lordstown, I guess they're just going to McDonald.
Yeah, I mean, and that's pretty generous of Newton Falls to kind of just give up home court advantage to it. I mean, I guess they don't really have much of a choice, but Newton Falls is technically supposed to be the home seed in this matchup. But
that's funny because Lordstown, as the bottom seed, probably does. I mean, they do not have a home game.
No, they don't have a home game.
So I wonder what that maybe Lordstown school said, hey, you can't come, our basketball season, or maybe it's because it's a Wednesday. I don't know. Their boys shouldn't have a game.
I was going to say it could be staffing issues or something along those lines,
or maybe because the way it works with tournament, the money goes into so maybe Lordstown just said no, and Newton Falls was kind of forced to go into McDonald. Who knows? But it's unfortunate for Newton Falls the way that there's water damage after that snowstorm we had right after Christmas, and they obviously haven't been able to play at home in about a month or so.
I will say too, going into this tournament, out of the gate, what I'm looking at D4, the most interesting matchups to me are going to be obviously Canton Central Catholic Waterloo. That's a premier, I think, first round matchup. I also am interested in East Palestine and Bristol. I think that's going to be the makings of a pretty good basketball game for sure.
obviously the top 2 seeds in Division 4, Springfield and who did I say? I'm already getting all mixed up. This has been a long Monday, Ty. Springfield and Badger will be 1 and 2. Obviously, they go into separate brackets, and they won't have to play each other in district championships or anything like that. So, very interesting to see. It was very interesting to see what teams went into what bracket and what teams made the decision of what team to go after 1 and 2. You're muted.
Badger making the decision of having a first round game, Springfield making the decision of not having a first round game. So it's going to be interesting because, like you mentioned, first round is early round was where Badger got bit last season too. So
yeah, they just want to. I think that decision is they just want to get into the tournament play, right? They just want to get in. Let's get it going.
Well, especially when you're on a winning streak, I think you want to just keep the momentum rolling, and you don't want a lot of time in between games. Right. I think you want to just keep things rolling as they are, and I think it's a good decision. And I mean, D4 is going to be interesting, no doubt.
And we have plenty of time to talk about the matchup, so we'll have more tournament previews and tournament talk as we get closer and closer to the tournament starting, and we get also closer and closer to the end of the regular season and figuring out these conference champions. But we'll go up into Division 3 and let you know the seedings real quick that went on down in Division 3. This is the Northeast District seeding. Sorry. Laurel gets the 1 seed. I mean, that's just, it was obvious that was going to happen. Laurel moved down to Division 3 this year. You look at the RPI, they're one of the best teams across the state in any division. They got the 3rd hardest schedule in the state across any division, and they're still 11-5 going into voting. So just Laurel is a freak of nature. They're really good. I think it was a obvious, everyone knew they were going to get the 1. The thing, who was going to get 2, 3, and 4 was the one that was going to surprise or not surprise the people. It was going to be a conversation. And here's how it went. Garfield gets the 2, Poland gets the 3, Crestview gets the 4, and Brookfield gets the 5. So 1, 2 through 5. And, that was the decision too, because eventually you have to go to Laurel, but all those teams probably didn't want to even try to test Laurel's bracket.
It is pretty interesting too, because I mean, like, you talk about what a difference a few days made, because Brookfield's probably in the conversation for top 3, and then Liberty is able to come up and get a win off of them too, and that obviously goes into the voting.
That's the thing, though. I mean, I think the voting was turned in before that happened.
Oh, did that happen before?
Like that happened on Saturday, and voting had to be in. Like, the voting was released on Saturday, so I think the voting probably had to be in before.
That's what I was curious about, is if that game was factored into it or not. Regardless, though, I mean, those top 5 teams, I mean, the way things have shaken out too.
And honestly, was losing to Crestview twice, and then obviously Garfield beat him, and then you had to have Poland somewhere in there. So they were just kind of the low man on the totem pole for that. But 5's not bad.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
We go through the rest of the district. After Brookfield, you have Lake Catholic as 6, Villa Angela St. Joe's at 7, Rootstown, which is a very good team that is not in the YSN family, but you have to really keep an eye on. They're one of the top teams in the region as far as the RPI goes. They got the 8 seed. United gets the 9. Southeast gets the 10. Pymatuning Valley gets the 11. Liberty gets the 12, South Range to 13, Columbiana 14, Lakeview 15, Kirtland 16, Grand Valley 17, Cardinal Mooney 18, Champion 19, Wycliffe 20, LeBray 21, Beechwood 22, and then Camel Memorial comes in at 23.
And just looking real quick, just a couple premier matchups that I'm excited for in the first round. I think Mooney Brookfield out of the gate is going to be a fun one that we'll have to talk about later on. South Range United, another one out of the box. That's going to be a very
because United, obviously, they proved they can compete with Poland earlier this year. South Range and Poland have been close both times. So to see 13 South Range versus 9 United in United, that's a throwback to the ITCL days. It's going to be fun.
It'll definitely be a fun matchup. Those are a couple I'm excited for first round, and they're going to be competitive. You know it.
Anything else stick out to you before we go into the D2 seedings?
I mean, there's a couple other good matchups too that I'm excited for. I'm excited Grand Valley Columbiana, now that's going to be an all YSN matchup for the first time this year too. I'm also excited to see what Garfield can do this season too, being that number 2 seed and being that team that, everyone was kind of doubting a little bit going into this season. They lost everything they did last year. 4 new starters and Laura McCoy in for transfer, and this team is taken off, and they are taking off with a hot start too. They had a little bit of a bump with
just that one blemish, that one loss to Brookfield.
That one loss to Brookfield, but since then they've refocused up and they're back on track. They look like a very tough team to beat when they're going, man.
And now it's going to be between them and Crestview for the MVAC.
I knew this Crestview team was going to take a step up. I was surprised how big of a step they took up. I'm excited for this Crestview team as they continue to develop. Still a very young team at its core.
Real quick, Ty, I know Liberty hasn't had the season that they wanted because a couple of injuries have left them depleted a little bit. But Demi Watson and Aaliyah Foster are game wreckers. And anytime you have someone like that that's just a game wrecker, you can make some moves in the tournament. They are very dangerous.
Didn't Demi Watson just go off for like 27 points against Brookfield? I mean, that's what you have to work. And that was a 5 seed in D4. I know you're talking a little bit different Division 3, but that when you have those type of players, Leah Foster and Demi Watson, that can go out and quite literally get you 30 on any given day, and you got 2 of them. I mean, those are the type of players you can lean on a little bit during tournament time, and they're definitely going to lean on them going into this. I'm excited for it.
You should be on upset alert if you're playing Liberty because they have those players. They have those players that they can wreck games. They can go wreck your game plan, wreck your game really quick.
Yeah.
But let's go into the Division 2 seedings real quick. Canfield gets the 1 seed. Salem gets the 2. Marlington gets the 3. I talked about this at length last week. I thought. Now, this was even after Salem beat Marlington because I thought the voting was done. I thought it would go Canfield, Marlington, Salem. That's what my prediction was. And I thought Salem was going to have to make the decision. Do you go to Canfield or do you go to Marlington? What bracket do you have to go into? And it would have been a really tough decision. But now it's Marlington that had to make that decision as the 3 seed. Do you want to go to Canfield, who beat you by 1 this year? Or do you want to go to Salem, who you still had their number, but they did beat you once this season? So now they got that monkey off their back. But then you look at the matchup and say, yeah, but we've beaten them now 3 out of the last 4 times, and the 3 times we've won, they've been lopsided. So it was really interesting to me once the seedings came out of what's Marlington going to do with that.
All of a sudden the pressure got put on the Dukes for sure, and they had to make the decision. And I mean, I don't know if they necessarily were prepared to.
I don't think so.
That kind of seat.
I think they went in. They thought they were going to get the 2, and Salem took it right out from under them. And I think when you look at it, it's because, teams like probably. I think some teams there's a lot of area teams. There's a lot of area teams in this district. I think they just know Salem a little bit better because it's Salem. Like they don't really play Marlington that much. I don't know. Maybe that's the factor. But we'll go through the rest of the rankings after Marlington at 3. Chagrin Falls comes in at 4. They had a good run in the CVC. The opposite side of Edgewood and Perry, who are 5 and 6. Perry gets 5. Edgewood gets 6. Those two finished 1 and 2 in the Lake Division of the CVC. Edgewood had 3 wins last year going into the voting of the tournament. This year, going into voting, Edgewood is 12 and 3, and right now they have 14 wins. So that tells you something about the turnaround Edgewood is having right now this year. Streetsboro is ranked 7. West Geauga is 8. Struthers is 9. Ursuline 10. West Branch 11. Howland 12. Girard 13. East is 14. Kenston 15, Aurora 16, Berkshire is 17, Alliance is 18, Geneva is 20, Notre Dame Cathedral Latin is 21, Hubbard 22, Jefferson 23, Ravenna 24, Harvey 25, Crestwood 26, Conneaut is 27, Niles 28, Cheney 29. I was 1 off. I'm sorry. Niles is 27, Cheney is 28. Somehow I skipped a number in that reading, but 28 teams.
There it is. But no, I mean, this is the tournament. I mean, is going to be interesting for D2, and there's a lot of teams I'm excited to see.
In some districts, you look at the bottom, like 3 or 4, they're all like 1 win or 2 win. Like the least wins the team has is Cheney with 3, but Niles has 4, Conneaut has 4, the wins are I'm not saying that they're world beaters or anything like that, but usually the bottom rung of a district has a couple of teams down there like with no wins or one win. So to see the bottom team with 4 tells you how hard this district really is.
That 12-20 matchup with Howland and NDCL is going to be fun in a first round too. I mean,
Because
NDCL,
NDCL obviously plays a tough schedule and they play an independent schedule. So,
and that's not to say that Howland doesn't either. I'm also excited. Ursuline and Aurora in the first round is going to be interesting.
Aurora's a team that dropped down in Division 2, so they're used to Division 1 basketball.
And Aurora is a team too. I mean, I think they are 8-9 wins, somewhere in that kind of range this year. But they're always a tough team, always a solid team year in and year out. It's a good program over there. Likewise with Ursuline, and that's going to be a fun first round matchup, no doubt.
At the time of voting, Aurora was 7-10. I don't know where they're sitting right now, like as we speak. Obviously, there's been a couple games since voting, but when they had to turn their records, they were 7-10. Ursuline is the 9 seed, excuse me. 10-6. I was right. 10 seed, 10-6.
But I mean, looking at this too.
How about West Branch? They're scary because Sophia Gregory is healthy, right?
Yeah.
I was talking about them before you came on the first half of the show. That comeback over Howland, everyone's starting to get a little bit more confident. Sophia Gregory's healthy. West Branch sitting at 11. That's got to be a little bit dangerous for some teams, especially because they're no stranger to tournament success. They know how to do it.
Were you surprised that Salem decided to go same bracket as Canfield? They just decided to go on the bottom.
No, because I think what they did is they took the decision out of Marlington's hands, really. But I think Salem matches up so well with Canfield. I think they've proven that over the last 4 years. The senior class of Canfield has never beaten Salem. And I think it's because you look at Salem's defense and the way they play, what they are really, really, really good at. They're good at all the things they do on defense, but what they excel at is holding teams to a low shooting percentage. And what Canfield loves to do and what their bread and butter is the shot. They love the shot, right? They don't have a lot of guards that like the dribble drive. They don't have a dominant post presence. They like to shoot the basketball. They want to shoot from the perimeter. They have about 4 girls that can go off from 3 at any given time. But Salem's good at stopping that. So I think Salem looked at that and said, whether we're the 3 or the 2, we're going after Canfield. And Coach Hamilton Phillips obviously didn't want to even mess with Marlington. They said, hey, we'll take the decision off Marlington's hands. You can have your own district. You can be the top seed in your district. And we'll go into a bracket with Canfield and take our chances with the Cardinals, who we've beaten a lot in the last 4 years.
What's interesting, too, by Salem doing that, they also subsequently kind of made Marlington's district harder because they
because now no one's going to 1 and 2 in the same district.
Supercharged one, and they were like, well, we're either going to play the 1 seed or the 2 seed before the finals at some point. Like, we can't do that. And I mean it's a little jab to Marlington too. Like, now we're gonna make your bracket super, super hard. Good luck getting the regionals, to our conference rival. I tell you what, there's a couple teams that they're gonna have to encounter in this one that are YSN. Girard in Marlington's bracket, Youngstown East. These are some quality teams this year, and I mean they can muck up a season. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't know, did I see Struthers on this one as well? I may not have seen Struthers in this one. No, Ursuline and Aurora in this one, though. And, of course, Chagrin Falls, which is a good team.
That's the one I'm looking out for, because Chagrin Falls is a very good basketball team.
It'll be a fun matchup. And
it could come down to Marlington versus Chagrin Falls, honestly, in the tournament.
I mean, if everything goes chalk, that's 3 and 4. I mean, that's what it should turn out to be if everything goes chalk. But
remind me, because you have them out in front of me, and I do. Perry and Edgewood, did they both go into the Canfield Salem bracket, or are they in Marlington's?
They went into Canfield Salem. It looks like.
Okay. So that'll make that district a little bit interesting, because I'll tell you, I saw Perry, and they have a player by the name of first name Grace McCoon, who is a superstar. And then Edgewood has Casey Kanicki, who is now the program's all-time leading scorer, who is just a phenomenal player too.
Edgewood is
we talked about Demi Watson being a game wrecker. Both those teams have a player that can be an absolute game wrecker on the floor as well.
Edgewood is matched up with fellow Ashtabula County School Geneva in round number 1.
Who they're going to play on Wednesday as well as part of their conference slate.
How much do you show in that game is the question, right?
I think Edgewood's confident enough that we can show you all you want. you don't have the tools to beat us.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think that's kind of what, because I had a chance to talk to Coach Vinsel over the weekend, and he's a confident dude. Like, I think he feels like this year is kind of their year to make a little bit of a run, because not only does he have Casey Kanicki, but he has Katie McCollister and he has McKenna Vinsel as well. McKenna Vinsel scored 20 on Saturday. McCollister's averaging 12 a game, and Kanicki's averaging 21 a game. So they have some scores. They can really put a monkey wrench into the district.
Yeah, I mean, this is
So does Perry, by the way.
absolutely.
All right, let's go into Division One. We have we're winding down the end of the show. Let's go into Division One real quick, and we'll go into the seedings. And here's how Division One seeds up. We do have a couple of teams in this district. Solon gets the 1 seed. Canton McKinley gets the 2. Green gets the 3. Hathaway Brown. We saw both those teams in South Range. Green and Hathaway Brown get the 3 and 4 seed. Walsh Jesuit gets the 5. Hoban, who is now a YSN school, gets the 6. Stone Monroe Falls gets the 7. Lake is the 8. Riverside is the 9. Maslin Jackson is the 10. And that's interesting because Maslin Jackson has probably the best player in the state. And they went to state last year. Obviously, 9-7, not the best record that they wanted this year. They play in that federal league that's just tough. But the Polar Bears are a really, really, really good basketball team.
Absolutely.
Probably feel like they got a little bit underseeded at 10. So
they're
literally poking the bear.
Yeah, they're gonna be in there with a vengeance, and it's gonna be a very scary team to try to encounter.
Literally poking the bear, the Polar Bear to be exact. Shaker Heights comes in as 11. Louisville comes in at 12. Ellett, who we just saw play Hoban on Thursday, comes in at 13, right behind Louisville. Cleveland Heights is 14. Eastlake North is 15. Boardman gets to 16, even though they've had a really rough week. Boardman, I think, is still pretty impressive and pretty dangerous in this division. Madison is right behind them at 17. Then you have Mender at 18, Hoover at 19, Maslin Perry at 20. 21 is Brush. Fitch comes in at 22, who's playing a lot better basketball now than they were in the first half of the season. So you have to watch out for Fitch as well. Maslin Washington right behind them at 23. Hudson at 24. Mayfield at 25. Cuyahoga Falls comes in at 26. 27 is Chardon. 28 is Roosevelt. Twinsburg comes in at 29. Warren Harding comes in at 30. Nordonia at 31. Glen Oak at 32. Willoughby South at 33. Euclid at 34. And then at 35, you have Ashton Beulah Lakeside.
Ask me which matchup I'm excited for in this D1.
What matchup are you excited for, Ty?
I think it's Austintown Fitch going to Boardman in the first round matchup in 22 versus 16 in what is going to be the third installment of this season. Those two teams 1-1 against each other. Both teams getting a win in the other team's gymnasium too. There's a lot of animosity going into this one. A friendly battle, though, between these two teams.
Honestly, Ty, correct me if I'm wrong, but the second matchup is one that I'm sure Boardman feels like slipped through their fingers. They came out, they had a lead, and they kind of gave it up.
It was a case, too, and being there for that game and for that call, it was a case, and I was talking with coaches a little bit afterwards, and I was saying even all night that really Boardman, they still got their offensive boards, they got their second chance looks, but it was one of those lid on the bucket type nights where the Spartans just they were putting up good shots. It was a lot of in and out buckets, and there was just a lot of shots that would not fall and refused to fall on second and third chance looks. Credit the Falcon defense for making it difficult for Boardman too, but Boardman's offense was definitely not operating as I've seen before, and it was just one of those off nights for him.
All right, real quick before we get out of here, we want to preview the night because we have a couple of big games tonight as conferences get even more in a clear view. We'll start at 6 o'clock, East Palestine at Wellsville. Coy will have the call there. 6 o'clock, LeBray at Liberty. Alec Caberna will be there for that one. Excuse me. 6 o'clock, Valley Christian goes to Latonia. Larry Scragg going to travel to the Bears Den for that one. 6:15, Sebring goes to Middle Ridge. Ian O'Brien there. 6:15, Springfield can win the MVAC tonight with a win over Western Reserve. They can lock it down. Noah Doty will be on the call there for the Tigers' big matchup with Reserve. United will host Columbiana. Chris Sigler going to be on the call there. Lakeview will go to South Range. I'll be in the Thriller Dome. Matthews will be at Badger, Matt Morrison there. David Williams will take Niles at Hubbard. Boardman hosts North Canton Hoover, Richie Giuliano on the call there. And then this is the biggest one of the night tie, Poland versus Struthers. First place on the line. They both have one loss in the NE8 that wasn't to each other. Well, the Struthers lost to Poland, but Poland lost to Girard. So both one loss. It comes down to the night. Struthers already beat Girard, so they're out of the mix. It's Struthers, it's Poland, it's Chloe Nieder, it's Mary Brandt, it's Katie McDonald, it's Faye Stellato. Superstars on both sides. Who's going to make the plays down the stretch? It's a fun one in the field house.
It should be fun. Bob Zanny and crew will be on the call on that one, and they always do a great job. Struthers crew does a phenomenal job over there. And, I mean, this is going to have all the excitement packed into a regular season game that you're asking for, with conference basically on the line between these two teams. And credit Struthers because they made all the plays they needed to down the stretch to get themselves in this position. They had a rocky start with that one loss, and they had a chance to still control their own destiny, and they controlled it up until this point.
Now, this is not a legit conference championship because both teams will still have a couple of games to play afterwards, but this is for driver's seat. This is for first place, and this is for, if things go the way they went in the first half, this is for conference championship rights. Especially if Poland wins, because you look at the schedule left for Poland, their teams that they've dominated. They've already played South Range again. They've played Girard twice now. So the tougher teams in the conference are behind them for Poland.
Well,
Struthers still has a matchup with South Range, and last time they only beat South Range by 5 in Struthers, so they still have to go to South Range. So especially if Poland wins, you really feel like they are in the driver's seat. If Struthers wins, they're definitely still there, but it's not as clear yet with them still having a couple of games left against a couple of tough teams.
Both teams 10-1 in the conference. Poland 14-3 overall. Struthers is 13-6. Cats versus Dogs. What else can you ask for? The field house is the place to be. And if you can't catch it there, Bob Zanny and crew will have a great call for you.
I think I'm going to be tuning in a little bit during my game.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not? It's
I know, right?
A great matchup.
Scheduling note real quick that McDonald at Lowville has been moved to tomorrow, and Crestview versus Camel has been postponed. 3 other matchups that'll be on the girls' side, not on the network, but are happening. Brookfield goes to Champion. Garrettsville Garfield goes to Newton Falls. That's going to be at Wyndham today, not Lordstown today, but at Wyndham. And Girard will go to Jefferson. One boys basketball game today at 7:30 is Grand Valley will play Wyndham at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse for the boys basketball. So a big one, another one in Cleveland for our YSN teams.
We love having them too. We love that those teams go up there, take advantage of it. It's always a cool experience for them, and that's Wyndham's second time up there, if I'm not mistaken. Now,
yep,
they're just like, we're used to it.
We got it.
We got it. Pro court, nothing to it.
All right, so tomorrow we're gonna have a good show. It's gonna be interviews galore. We have a couple of interviews in the can that we're happy to share with you tomorrow. We'll have Abby Mazur from Waterloo that we're gonna play, and then we'll also have an interview with Bella Meyer from Champion. Who's kind of put that team on her back this year and is really putting together a strong scoring season. Talk to her in a little bit, and we'll have her interview for you tomorrow as well. So it's going to be a fun show tomorrow from 1 to 2. Tune into it, and Power Hour will have you covered from 3 to 4. This has been Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Enjoy all the basketball tonight, and we'll see you all tomorrow from 1 to